June 4th, 1942. Dawn breaks over the central Pacific as waves of Japanese aircraft thunder toward Midway Atoll. 4 aircraft carriers bristling with fighters and bombers. The largest naval strike force ever assembled. It's Japan's moment to finish what Pearl Harbor started: total destruction of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. But let's change one thing. Slicing through the waves at impossible speed sits something that shouldn't exist for another 74 years. The USS Zumwalt, a 15,000-ton stealth destroyer from 2016, armed with weapons that could level cities and radar that can see tomorrow's weather. So what happens when the most advanced warship on Earth faces off against the Imperial Japanese Navy at their absolute peak? This isn't your great-grandfather's tin can destroyer. The USS Zumwalt looks like it was designed by aliens who really hate enemy radar. Its angular, tumble-home hull gives it the radar signature of a fishing boat despite being 620 feet of pure technological terror. Here's what this floating supercomputer is packing: 80 vertical launch system cells loaded with enough guided missiles to delete small countries from existence. We're talking SM-6 surface-to-air missiles that can swat planes out of the sky from 150-plus miles away. Tomahawk cruise missiles with a 1,000-mile range that can thread the needle through a window and explode exactly where you don't want them to. And ESSM point defense missiles for anything foolish enough to get close. But wait, there's more. 2 155mm advanced gun systems that were supposed to fire precision rounds 80-plus miles away. Unfortunately, those miracle shells cost more than a Lamborghini each, so they got canceled. The guns are basically expensive paperweights. Whoops. The ship's brain is an AN and SPY-3 radar array that can track hundreds of targets simultaneously while brewing coffee and calculating your taxes. It sees everything, tracks everything, and can guide missiles to hit a golf ball traveling at 600 miles per hour. Powered by 78 megawatts of electric power, enough to light up a small city, this thing cruises at 30-plus knots while making less noise than a library. In 1942, it's essentially a time-traveling war machine operated by wizards. But even this behemoth won't quite turn Midway back into your typical Thursday, because Admiral Yamamoto isn't messing around. He brought the crown jewels of the Imperial Japanese Navy, 4 fleet carriers that attacked Pearl Harbor 6 months ago: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hairyu. Floating airports packed with 272 of Japan's best pilots flying Zeros, Kates, and Vals. These aren't just any carriers. They're the most experienced naval aviators on the planet, fresh off conquering half the Pacific. Their Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters are fast, agile, and flown by pilots who've been perfecting their craft since the 1930s. Supporting this aerial armada are battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, over 100 warships total. The battleship Yamato lurks in the distance, armed with 18-inch guns that can lob shells the size of Volkswagens. But here's the thing. These ships fight like it's 1942. Probably because it is 1942. We're talking visual spotting, primitive radar, and manual fire control. They have to see their targets to shoot them, and their longest range weapons reach maybe 25 miles on a good day. The Zumwalt can kill them from the next zip code. At 0430 hours, the first wave of Japanese aircraft lifts off from their carriers, 108 planes strong. They're heading for Midway, flying in tight formation, confident in their numerical superiority. 100 miles away, the Zumwalt's Spy-3 radar lights them up like Christmas trees. The ship's combat system processes the threat in microseconds. The result? Target practice. The Japanese pilots have no idea they're about to become history's most one-sided turkey shoot. The first SM-6 missile streaks into the dawn sky at Mach 3.5, then another, and another. These aren't the crude rockets of 1942. They're fire-and-forget guided munitions that think thousands of times faster than you or me, even if we had more than 2 brain cells. 1 second, the Japanese formation is pristine, facing an empty horizon. The next, state-of-the-art planes turn into clouds of dust for no apparent reason. The enemy seems invisible, but in reality is simply shooting so far they have to account for the curve of the Earth. Good luck explaining that, flat earthers. Put lightly, For a Japanese pilot, this is fucking terrifying. Panic spreads through the formation like wildfire. Pilots bank desperately, searching for the invisible threat. Some dive toward the water, others climb for altitude. The tight attack formation descends rapidly into chaos. Meanwhile, the Zumwalt tracks every single aircraft while calmly launching more missiles. Its computer brain doesn't hesitate, and definitely doesn't miss. To the Zumwalt, hand-delivering trained fighter pilots to God by the dozen is a normal Thursday. By the time the survivors reach Midway, and if the floating doomsday is feeling generous, about half the attack force has mysteriously vanished. The remainder drops their bombs haphazardly before fleeing back toward their carriers, reporting impossible losses and blaming a ghost. Admiral Nagumo, aboard the carrier Akagi, receives the survivors' reports with growing alarm. It sounds like a mass hallucination, but starts to become very real when exactly 0 of the missing planes fly back from the afterlife. He orders the second wave to launch immediately, 170 more planes racing toward what they think is just Midway Atoll. Bad call. The Zumwalt has moved to intercept, its stealth hull invisible to 1942 eyes and radar. The destroyer's crew watches the incoming formation on their screens like it's a video game, because to them, it basically is. More SM-6 missiles shriek skyward. Japanese Zeros, the terror of the Pacific, disintegrate like paper airplanes in a hurricane. Kate torpedo bombers, loaded with ordnance for attacking ships, become flying fireballs before they even know they're under attack. The psychological effect is devastating. Veteran pilots who've dominated every sky they've flown suddenly find themselves helpless against an enemy they can't see or fight, let alone beat. With the air threat neutralized, the Zumwalt goes on the offensive. Its Tomahawk cruise missiles don't need a direct line of sight. They can fly 900 plus miles, navigate around obstacles, and arrive exactly where they're least welcome. The destroyer launches a salvo of cruise missiles toward the Japanese carrier's last known position. These missiles streak across the ocean at 550 miles per hour, 50 feet above the waves, invisible even to radar systems decades later. Akagi's lookouts spot what looks like a small aircraft approaching fast and low. Too late. The Tomahawk's 1,000-pound warhead detonates against the carrier's side, punching through steel plating and igniting aviation fuel stores. The carrier erupts in flames. Within minutes, the ship that helped bomb Pearl Harbor is a floating inferno. Kaga suffers the same fate. Then Soryu. The missiles arrive without warning, guided by computers more advanced than anything 1942 can imagine. Each hit is devastating, precise, and lethal. But even gods have limits. The Zumwalt carries 80 missiles total. Impressive, but finite. After destroying aircraft and crippling their carriers, its magazines start running low. More critically, it's fighting in 1942 and there are no GPS satellites to guide its weapons. There are no data links to coordinate with other units, and there are no spare parts. The crew has to rely on their ship's onboard sensors and their training, and pray nothing breaks too soon. And there's still the Japanese submarine threat. I-168 lurks somewhere beneath the waves, armed with a Type 95 torpedo. A single lucky shot could cripple even the Zumwalt, and while it's invisible to 1942 radar, to a periscope, the floating behemoth is hard to miss. The destroyer's sonar gives it a huge advantage in sub-hunting, but submarines are patient. One mistake or moment of inattention, and the future's most advanced warship could join the party at the bottom of the Pacific. When the smoke clears, and assuming I-168 has been spotted, the Battle of Midway has become the most lopsided naval victory in history. 4 Japanese fleet carriers are sunk or sinking, hundreds of irreplaceable pilots are gone, and Japan's offensive capability in the Pacific is annihilated in a single morning, all while you could count American losses on one hand. The ship would be remembered as the Phantom of Midway, some 74 years of military advancement that would compress Japan's defeat from years into hours. If you're curious what would happen if a modern tank landed at Normandy on D-Day, check this video out, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.